there were different reasons at different times, really. The first club that showed real interest was Spurs when I was 21. And, I was a Spurs fan as a kid, and my dad supported Spurs. Glenn Hoddle was my hero. So that was quite tempting, and I nearly signed for Spurs. And the only reason I didn't in the end was I was just about to get married. And my fiance at the time didn't fancy going to live in London. So that was kind of the reason why I didn't join Spurs. I then had a chance to join Liverpool a couple of years later. But again, I didn't really want to go and live somewhere where it rained that much, to be honest with you.
Fair enough.
And then again, I was happy at Southampton. And again in '95 when Chelsea tried to buy me, I just had the best season of my career. I'd scored 30 goals. I was playing really good stuff. I was very happy with my football. And I didn't see the reason to want to leave. So I turned Chelsea down when Glenn Hoddle was their manager, ironically enough. And so, yeah, those were kind of all the reasons. And I always felt like I owed Southampton something as well, because, they gave me my chance to be a professional footballer, which was my dream as a kid. So they gave me that opportunity to do that. And so I always felt like I owed them something back in return for that. And so, yeah, that was another reason. Another reason was how the fans treated me, if I'm honest. Ever since I was a kid, at 17, when I made my debut, fans were right behind me. I spent the first couple of years of my career basically as a sub. If we weren't winning the game by like 50, 55 minutes, I just remember the crowd always behind the goal singing my name to get the manager to put me on the pitch. They were always brilliant to me. So I've had a wonderful relationship for a long time with the Southampton fans. And again, that played a part in me wanting to stay. I'm led to believe that the processes are way more better than what they were, and lessons have been learned from that dreadful situation, even though it took a long time, and it shouldn't have taken that long, to be honest. So mistakes were made. It shouldn't have been allowed to have gone on for that long. And sadly, a lot of people suffered because of it. A lot of those people are my mates. And a lot of those people didn't have careers in football because of it. And that's the, a really, really horrible thing about it is these guys had, ambitions to want to be a footballer, had the ability to be a professional footballer. And because of what happened, for whatever reason, they weren't able to go and have the career that they should have had because of a sexual predator at the end of the day. And it's the only sad thing about it was it took so long for him to get put behind bars. Definitely do. There were other people that it almost felt like, when you try and piece the things together, there was almost like a little network of them who kind of all knew each other at different clubs. And so I think it was a lot more prevalent than what people suspected. And it's hard because people don't really want to go there and talk about it because it's not nice. It's not nice, but it's happened. And I think the thing with that is that the only way you eradicate evil is to confront it. You can't hide from it. You can't just kind of pretend it doesn't happen because it doesn't go away on its own. And thankfully, he's behind bars now and won't be able to do it again. I think ultimately it came down to the fact that I wasn't a yes man. That's kind of what I believe. I was willing to speak on my own social media against the company that I was working for because of the coverage that they were giving of the situation around COVID. I think that was the main reason. I think they've also, obviously, everybody's seen that the way that not just Sky, but all television channels have gone, where, the diversity, equity and inclusion thing has to be taken into consideration, which, I'm not necessarily against proportional representation. But I actually think it's become disproportionate now when you consider the percentage of people that are minorities in this country. I've always believed that the television should be a representation of our society. It should be an equal proportion on television than what we see in everyday life. Unfortunately, I don't think that is the case at the moment, because they've kind of gone completely the other way with, almost discriminating against, white blokes. It's difficult to talk about that, and it's difficult to say it because people, think you're being mad, and you go, oh, you can't be racist against white people. They're the oppressors. But there are people actively going out and openly admitting that they will not employ white people in their company anymore, white men. So, again, we have to call out for what it is. You've got to call it out. It's racism. If you're discriminating against white people, it's no different to discriminating against a black person. Discrimination is discrimination, whatever color or creed you are. And so, I think we have to call it out where we see it. It's very similar around the COVID jab thing, where, they almost made it impossible for the unvaccinated to, live the same life as everybody else. And it was okay to poke fun at people who weren't jabbed, and it was okay to abuse them for not being jabbed, to call them a granny killer because they didn't have the jabs. I think there's a lot of things that I've said that I've been vindicated on. There are a couple of things that I probably posted that I didn't think about the context first, and when I did that, and I realised that it's kind of I made an error of judgment in terms of a point I was trying to make, but using the wrong issue to make that point. Then I apologised and I deleted the post, and I think that's what decent human beings should do. They should be able to hold their hand up when they made a mistake and go, look, I'm really sorry, I made a mistake there. My fault. I've corrected that. And in an ideal world, you would have forgiveness for that kind of thing. But unfortunately, forgiveness is only given to the people who are on the right side of the narrative. So if you're perhaps on the left more, and you're going with the government narrative, and you make a mistake, you'll get forgiven and you'll get your job back on television. But if you're on the other side of the narrative and you make a mistake, well, that's it. Cancel culture kicks in, and like you're the worst person on the planet, and you should never be employed again in your life. And that's not fair. And I'm afraid it needs calling out. And people don't like it when you call it out. And that's when you get kind of ostracized. You get, I had a 15-year, or probably actually it was longer than that, it was an 18-year career in the media in this country, and I was sacked from my job, and since then haven't had one single inquiry from a British company, or from a company in this country, to work for another company. And with all that experience, and a 16-year professional football playing career as well, it's odd that I'd get sacked and not a single other company would touch me. I think there was obviously our program was incredibly popular, but with the new owners at Sky, and with the DEI stuff that was coming in, obviously having 5 middle-aged white men on a program wasn't the look that they were going for. There were scapegoats made. Myself, Charlie, and Phil all got sacked on the same day. I'm still not quite sure why Phil and Charlie were sacked. I kind of know why I was, but Charlie and Phil weren't doing the same things as I was doing. It was sad because we had a great program there. It was fantastic. Feedback was amazing from the fans when I went around the country. Everybody loved the show. Everybody loved Stelling, and the crack that we had between us was amazing. And they've kind of ruined the show, if I'm honest, because I can't tell you the amount of people that have come up to me in the last 3 or 4 years and go, "Wow, what a pile of crap that is now. I can't even watch it anymore. It's that bad. I've stopped watching it." The amount of people that have said that to me is incredible. So they've ruined a brilliant show, all for the sake of wanting to be diverse and equitable. And listen, I I get that to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, the most fairest way that we can live in society is to give the job to the best person for the job, irrespective of what colour, creed, or sex they are. I haven't spoken directly to Gary Lineker about it, but Gary is part of the establishment, and everything that I'm saying is kind of going against all of the things that his handlers are telling him to say, because I think Gary is well, I think what the term they use is useful idiot, quite frankly, and I don't have a lot of time for him. He's got his life to live. I've got a different opinion to him. I didn't go after him for his different opinions, which I could easily have done. But I'm happy to let him have his opinion. He should be happy to let me have my opinion, and not try to belittle me in the way that he's tried doing, because it won't work. I don't get intimidated by people trying to bully me into silence, as you may have noticed over the last few years. I don't really kind of allow Gary Lineker's thoughts to dominate any part of my life. And there's been other players that have actually sent me a lot of messages of support in private, who still work in the media but can't make their views public because they're frightened of losing their jobs. I was quite prepared to lose my job over what I thought was the right thing to do. If other people choose to go another way, that's completely their choice. I understand that they've got bills to pay and that they need their jobs, and that's fine. But I would say to them, it's not the end of the world getting let go by a media company. I've found other streams of income that have enabled me to continue living my life in the house that I live in with the family that I've got. It's not always a bad thing to speak your mind and be able to sleep peacefully at night.